Peace, peace, peace. Peace, love, and light to all American Aborigines. This your brother Aboriginal Power. You're tuned in to another Wake and Bake show. Today we're gonna be covering day 3 of the Young Thug and the YSL case court hearing. So listen, I'm not even gonna hold you guys up any longer. I want you guys to support the channel, thumb up the video, and support the channel, man. I need y'all to thumb up the video and support the channel. It's very important. We're gonna be getting right into this Young Thug case. We're gonna play one intro song, and then we're gonna get right into it, you guys. I don't want to waste you guys any longer. So let's get right into it.
Whatever it takes, the alleyway. Feelings from the past, yeah, you gotta pay attention. Feelings from the past, yeah, you gotta pay attention. They won't say my name, but they put it in a mention. Too much sneak dissing, yeah, we need an intervention. Right before the fall, I swear my niggas, they won't listen. Right before the fall, you took them pills, you got addicted. Right before the fall, you run your mouth, you turn to dentist. Free my niggas in the cage, know that shit get lonely. You was with me from the start, but you did me phony. Look my bitch right in the eyes, tell her she my only. Poppin' shit on Instagram, they don't even know me. Had to turn my savage up to turn me to the old me. Killers moving silent, so I gotta kill them softly. Lie better, little baby, better lie better. You playing the other side on God out. Trendsetter, no talking, I did better. They watching my moves, playing my moves. I did let up, I kept it 1,000. Niggas get shifty, I did something, I'm moving around. Had to get to it, this bread, something they want me to drown. Remember they told me I was nothing, I've been through some things. On God, baby, I can't front it. Feelings from the past, yeah, you gotta pay attention. They won't say my name, but they put it in a mention. Too much sneak dissing, yeah, we need an intervention. Right before the fall, I swear my niggas, they won't listen. Right before the fall, you took them pills, you got addicted. Right before the fall, you run your mouth, you turn to dentist. Free my niggas in the cage, know that shit get lonely. You was with me from the start, but you did me phony. Look my bitch right in the eyes, tell her she my only. Poppin' shit on Instagram, they don't even know me. Had to turn my savage up to turn me to the old me. Killers moving silent, so I gotta kill them softly. Do better, you said that you do better. These niggas playing in 50, I really got moved better. I got these on my block, I can't play round. I position on my life, I can't play round. We gon' get it back in blood if they stay round. Know them niggas off the drugs, they gon' lay down. I was love, you put me right in the middle. Got niggas that screaming gang and niggas that wanna kill you. They got feelings from the past, pay attention. They only sending shots cause these niggas want attention. Won't be no RIP, heli intervention. Putting threats on my name, made me turn them to a pension. Feelings from the past, yeah, you gotta pay attention. They won't say my name, but they put it in a mention. Too much sneak dissing, yeah, we need an intervention. Right before the fall, I swear my niggas, they won't listen. Right before the fall, you took them pills, you got addicted. Right before the fall, you run your mouth, you turn to dentist. Free my niggas in the cage, know that shit get lonely. You was with me from the start, but you did me phony. Look my bitch right in the eyes, tell her she my only. Poppin' shit on Instagram, they don't even know me. Had to turn my savage up to turn me to the old me. Killers moving silent, so I gotta kill them softly.
Shout out to everybody in the building, man. Hopefully everybody's enjoying your day, this grand rising. We're gonna get right into the Young Thug case, man. It's already cracking, it's already up and running. We're gonna get right into it right now, man. So hit that like button, thumb up the video, and let's go. Now they brought my nigga Thug in with chains. Then he got chains. That's pretty cool. Next time we hear that,
Hey, tell all the attorneys, y'all just do me a favor, and when you have to make an objection or something, because all I'll hear is like a voice out in the crowd, and I don't have voice recognition, so you can just say, on behalf of Mr. So-and-so, I object, or whatever, so I can get down who's talking. That would be really helpful, because I think yesterday, a few times someone said no objection. I have no idea who just said it, so that would be helpful. Thank you. And I restocked my weed for us.
I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to go down today at this court case hearing. Young Thug is right there in court. He's chained up by the waist, all the way down to the shackles to the feet. I know he don't want to be in there like this. This is not the way he wanted to be in court. Free Thug, free all the real brothers and sisters. It's going to be a nasty court case hearing today. All the experts are in. All the witnesses are in. I'm looking forward to see what's going down. Make sure you hit that like button. Share the live stream. Share this live stream, you guys. Put on your Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Share the live stream. Appreciate everybody in the building. I don't know what's going on with the footage. Look like it froze up a little bit. I don't know what the hell going on. We don't know what's going on with this right now. So bear with me, you guys. We're going to see what's going on. That wasn't on my end. We want to make sure we're good. We want to make sure we're good. All right, let's get it. Okay.
Good morning, sir.
We locked in. We locked in. Let's go.
All right, Denise McMullen. Thank you, sir. Tanquarius Mender.
Good morning, Your Honor. Nicole Fagan on behalf of Mr. Mender.
Good morning, Ms. Fagan. And Ms. Fagan, I'd note for the record, you were also present yesterday. What time did you come in yesterday?
Right on time.
Right on time. There you go. So we accounted for you for both days. You get a check mark. That's wonderful. All right. Jaden Myrick. Ms. Bernard, good morning.
Good morning, Harvey.
All right, Cormerius Nichols. Good morning, Mr. Harvey.
I was early both days. Do I get some benefit for that?
Yeah, Mr. Bott said he'll give you, maybe some bagels.
That's good. It's Hanukkah. We are celebrating. Nicole Westmoreland and Lamar Gardner is also with us.
All right, thank you, sir. Good morning, councils.
We're early today too.
I saw. Listen, I see everybody. Thank you, sir. All right, Radeus Ryan, Mr. Williams.
So it seems like they're doing roll call right now. They're doing roll call.
Antonio
Trying to see what's going on. It's
Sledge.
about to get right into the case. I need everybody to share the live stream.
Where's Mr. Sledge?
Judge?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rice is his attorney. He didn't need for this.
That's
right.
Okay, you're correct about that. Octavia Stevens. Ms. Gladden, good morning, madam. All right, good morning again. All right. Mr. Garlington, good morning, sir. All right.
Right now, this is just a state RICO case. I'm almost guaranteed that the Fed is going to step in, probably like towards the end of the trial, and pick it up. I'm pretty sure the state is going to release it over and give it over to the Feds. The Feds is going to pick up this case.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Botson, Mr. Sharp, and good morning, Mr. Stillwell. Okay. All right. Yeah, I know. You'll pay. I understand. That's right. Thank you. All right. And Antonio someone? Mr. Hoover, good morning, sir. Couple of administrative announcements. From yesterday evening, I've talked to Mr. Kearns, my staff attorney, and we will have the compendium questionnaire emailed out to you by close of business today or shortly thereafter, so that we can have a discussion about those questions Thursday morning. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I would just politely remind everybody, ask everybody to kind of be here at 9 o'clock. I start, not 9, by 9:30. We can't start till everybody gets here. So it's as much as you can, please go ahead and get here timely. And if you run into any problems, as many of you have done, please just contact my chambers, but try as much as you can to be on time so we can go ahead and get started, as we've got a fair amount of business each day, which we'll try and accomplish. All right. Those are the only two administrative announcements I have for this morning. As I understand it, Ms. Rosenwasser, you have Mr. Panea available. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, we have Mr. Pineda and Investigator Hall. We have Investigator first.
Yeah, let's call Mr. Pineda first, please. Thank you. All right. Walter Pineda. Mr. Pineda, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
If you would please approach the witness stand. Once you get there, if you would be so kind to turn and face Deputy Talton to be sworn as a witness, please.
Raise your right hand for me. You swear to affirm the testimony I give the court the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you.
I do.
You want to take a seat? State and spell your first and last name.
My name is Walter Pineda. Spells WLTERPINEDA.
Sir, you can sit down, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Pineda.
Good morning.
Mr. Pineda, where are you employed, sir?
I'm self-employed and I work for a company called Marathon Photo.
Okay. And just so everyone can hear you in the back, I'm going to need you to lean forward and speak into the mic a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Okay. And how long have you been employed in that position?
I've been doing video enhancements for almost 30 years.
Okay. And what were you, how were you employed previously?
I was employed by a company called Pinkerton. I went there until the company closed down. And I went independently.
And can you tell us a little bit about your educational background?
I got a degree in professional photography and design.
Okay. In your current position, how did you become involved in that line of work?
The company that I was working for, we were taking care of financial institutions, taking care of people that were doing forgeries and bank robberies. So I was able to be trained by the company to be able to get the images that they needed for the person that committed the crime.
And do you have any relevant training or?
The company trained me at the time
Okay,
because back then it was film.
sure. How do you
And
see
then-
it? I'm sorry.
Back then it was film. Then it became video or VHS, CDs, and then hard drives.
Mr. Pineda, how do you stay up to date on your training?
I follow the training on the experience that I have to do the same things on new cases.
Do you have any specific, like, continuing courses that you
Yes,
take?
I do. I became a bilingual interpreter in legal, medical, and educational interpretation.
What kind of certifications have you obtained?
That will be the legal and the medical interpretation certification at UGA.
Approximately how many, video enhancements have you performed over the course of your career?
I would say it's thousands.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit state's proposed exhibit 10. May I approach the witness?
All right, has that exhibit already been shown to defense counsel?
Yes, it's been served in discovery.
Right in discovery?
Yes, Judge.
All right, you may approach the witness.
Mr. Pineda, do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
My resume?
Has there been any alterations or changes to that document?
No, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to admit state's proposed exhibit 10, previously served to discovery. The defense counsel accepts.
Any objection to states 10? Purpose of the motion. All right, states 10 is admitted.
Mr. Pineda, have you been qualified as an expert before?
I do.
What states?
Georgia,
Okay. And what courts?
state,
About how many times would you say?
over 50 times.
Okay. Can you describe for the court the method video enhancements are performed?
Yes, I do. When I get a video, I check the images, the quality of the video. When I get to find the image that I'm interested in, I will divide the image or the screen in 4 sections, and I will get 1/4 of that section to follow up on the particular image or interest of the image to enhance the video.
Okay. What kind of results can be expected from, enhancing video evidence?
The result could be a better view of the evidence given by the prosecution.
Is this type of video enhancement, like you described, just described for the court, have other law and agencies used this type of service?
Yes, they have.
Just prosecution?
Prosecution, defense attorneys, police departments, GVI, and FBI.
Okay. And as far as you know, is it generally accepted?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Are there any kind of standards or like control, how video enhancements are performed?
You have to follow a protocol, meaning when you divide the images in 4 sections, that 4 will have to be like, get the first image, and if it's too small, then you go to a bigger image. And if he wants it to be bigger, then you go to a bigger image.
Okay. And that standard that you just described for the court, did you follow those procedures?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What did you enhance in this case?
In this particular case, I enhanced 2 videotapes or 2 videos, one from a parking lot area by a car driving by and a gas station.
Okay. And you did use that standard for the enhancements in this?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, we would ask that that the court qualify Mr. Pineda in forensic video analysis based on his experience, his background, training, and the fact that this is well established.
Okay, forensic video analysis?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Anybody wish to voir dire the witness?
Yes, I do.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Adams.
Thank you. On behalf of Mr. Williams. Mr. Pineda, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, I do.
All right. I want to ask you a few questions, please, about the work that you've done and what you just testified to. And if you don't understand the question, please let me know and I'll be happy to rephrase, okay?
I will.
You indicated that you've been qualified as an expert previously
Yes, I have.
in the state courts here in Georgia.
Yes, sir.
And you've been qualified in what field or in what particular category specifically?
Video analysis and video enhancements.
Now, you stated earlier, I want to ask you some questions about the protocol that you referenced. The state asked you whether or not there's a particular.
Hey, I'm not even
protocol
gonna lie.
that you
Young
follow
Thug
in
defense
regards
team
to,
is
video
fucking certified.
enhancement.
He's
Could you
already
describe
setting
for
up
us
the
what that
bag right now. I heard the
protocol actually is,
conversation.
please?
Listen,
The
pay attention.
protocol is to
Watch how he set this up.
the section in which I'm involved to enhance, meaning I have to divide the screen in 4 sections. That 1/4 of the sections, I follow up the same size, the images in which are being involved on the video analysis.
All right. So that's a description apparently of what you actually do in terms of video enhancement.
Yes, it is.
But in terms of the protocol, are those protocols recorded anywhere? They're written protocols that govern exactly how you enhance a
The
video.
protocol is involved in the images given to the prosecution.
Okay.
Every detail is given to them in every folder, tells you a description of what it was done to that particular image.
Okay. So would I be correct in that what you're saying is that when you forward what you consider to be the enhanced video to the prosecution, you have instructions or you're telling them exactly what you did to enhance that video?
I did not write anything to that matter. I just let them see and see for themselves for what I have done.
But in terms of when I say protocol, are there any written protocol from any agencies, any organizations that talks about the best practices for video enhancement that you
No.
are aware of?
No,
There are none?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Are you aware of whether there are any publications that make reference to the mechanism that you use, the protocol that you use, any publications that you would look to in regards to video
No.
enhancement? None?
None.
You referenced earlier in your testimony that the video enhancement is used by other agencies. Are you familiar with whatever protocols are used by those agencies in video enhancement?
They don't use any protocols for me to use, no.
Okay. You responded to one of the prosecutor's questions earlier. He asked you whether or not you know if the standard of video enhancement or the practice of video enhancement that you utilize, whether or not it is, quote, generally accepted. And you said it is.
Yes, it is.
Do you know by what agencies or what entities that protocol is generally accepted by?
It has been accepted in the Cobb County, Fulton County, and Gwinnett County.
Okay. And when you're responding to it being accepted, are you talking about it has been used in those counties? Video enhancements has been used in those counties. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. I have no further questions for this witness.
Anybody else? Go ahead. Mr. Weinstein, you can go third. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sudi Chakri, Minutes on behalf of Mr. Dorsey. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, sir.
Now, what was your name again?
Walter Pineda.
Mr. Pineda, how are you?
Fine.
All right. So we spoke a little bit about the way that you develop your expertise, what you claim to be your expertise. And you said you used to enhance tape back in the day, right?
Film.
Film. And then film developed into VHS. Is that right? And then CDs. Is that right?
Correct.
And now they're hard drives.
Correct.
Okay. So now, is it fair to say that technology has changed drastically?
It has.
Have you received any training as it comes to the new technology that is used nowadays in the video recording?
I have not.
Okay.
But the last time that I work for Pinkerton, we already were using hard drives.
But you haven't been trained formally by any agency or any education from any school?
They don't have anything available for that.
All right. Now, when the state asked you, did you receive any further training, your response was
Now,
that
they
you
said he have no
got in
training, no
as a
standard.
interpreter and as a medical interpretation. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. And those things have absolutely nothing to do with video enhancement. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
You don't need to speak Spanish to be able to enhance a video.
Correct.
Now, you describe the way that you do it, but you have not told us if that is the way that everybody else does it. Is that right?
I don't know how everybody else does it, but the way I do it, that's the way I've been doing it for years.
Okay. And do you have a bachelor's degree?
No, sir, I don't.
Do you have any type of education with IT?
I don't have.
Okay. Do you have an associate's degree?
No, I don't.
Do you have a high school degree?
I have a high school.
Look
yes,
at his
I
hands,
have
y'all.
a degree and I
He's
have
doing the Mason pose.
professional
Got
photography
his
and design.
Freemason hands together.
When did you get your diploma on professional photography?
The first thing is about to eat this guy alive.
And when did you get that?
I got that in 1987.
1987. Has the technology that was used in 1987 changed drastically to the technology used, say, from 2010 to 2022?
I believe so.
Have you been trained in that new technology by any formal education agency?
No, I have not.
Now, when you say that you have testified over 50 times, is that right?
More than 50 times, yes, sir.
And when was the last time that you testified?
I testified over probably about 6 months ago in DeKalb County.
DeKalb County, okay. Now, have you also said that you have testified for the defense sometimes, is that right?
Yes, I have.
How many times out of those 50 plus times?
I would say more than 10 times.
About 10 times, okay. Now, when you enhance these videos, you describe as you break it up into 4 sections, is that right?
No, I break it up into 4 sections and use only one section.
Okay, and when you break it up into that 4 sections and use that one section, what do you do with that one section?
That one section follow up on the images involved on that particular event. So I get all the images involved. Let's see if the person is going by. I capture every single event of the person going in front of the camera.
But other than freeze framing the video, what do you actually do? What is the process to, as you say, enhance these images?
All I do is get closer, and if the image is too noisy, you reduce the noise out.
Is that something that I could do if I had the right software to get it done?
You can do it if it's up to you, yes.
So any layperson that has the right software could just go ahead and do that?
If they will have the experience, they want to do it, it's up to them.
But so you don't have to have a degree or any level of expertise to actually do that?
Correct.
Is it fair to say that sometimes some careers just with technology advancement just become obsolete?
Not this particular one. I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years.
Then how come are you moonlighting as an interpreter as well?
No.
Okay, so how come you haven't gotten any further training as to the technology?
Because people have not using video technology as much as they used to do it in the past.
Okay. Has anybody ever reviewed your work? Has there ever been any peer review of the work that you do?
I'm not aware of. I mean, the only thing is give the evidence to the prosecution or to defense or to the police department, and they're satisfied with it, and they are.
What is the name of the software that you use?
I use a software called Photoshop.
Photoshop, that's the one I can get on the Apple Store?
It's up to you, whatever you want to do it.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Damn, he killed him, man. He fucked him up.
Mr. Pineda,
Yes, sir.
over here. How many video enhancements have you done over the course of 30 years? Just ballpark.
I would say over 500.
Over 500? Okay, all right. Next.
Doug Weinstein for Mr. Kendrick.
530 years.
No, sir.
That's like the equivalent to doing
You were saying that you're not aware of any
one every 4 months.
certified video enhancement technicians. Is that correct?
Every 6 months.
Familiar with the
2
International
times a year.
Organization of Identification?
No, sir.
Are you aware that they have certifications?
I sustain the objection.
Okay.
Remember, it's knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education, okay?
Are you certified by them as a forensic video technician?
No,
Are you certified by them for forensic photography?
no,
Are you
Damn,
familiar with
dude up.
the scientific working group on imaging technology?
Young
that
Thug
lays out
defense team
guidelines for following
crazy.
imaging techniques?
They got heat.
So according to their guidelines, you're supposed to keep a documented record of the techniques that you use. Do you keep a documented record of what you do?
I don't.
Moderators update everybody in the chat to what's going on. Moderators
Peer
update everybody.
review of your work.
I don't know. I don't know who has reviewed it.
I'm sorry, could you say that
I
again?
said, I don't know who has reviewed it. No, I don't.
Are there others in your company that review your work?
No, I work independently, sir.
The guidelines also state that there should be annual training. Do you participate in any annual training?
I have not.
Hey, y'all share the live screen, y'all. Share the live screen. Share the live screen for me. Drop a fire emoji in the chat if y'all can hear and see everything clearly.
Training, that's different. I'll overrule the objection.
Have you undergone any competency testing?
No,
The guidelines also specify that there should be proficiency testing. Have you had any proficiency testing?
no,
The guidelines also state that there should be standard operating procedures for image enhancement. Do you have a set of standard operating procedures that you follow?
I do.
And what are those standard operating procedures?
Like I told you before, I follow up the way that I always do it in every single enhanced video that I work in.
And are those standard operating procedures written down somewhere?
No, sir.
So
Something I learned through the years.
Your technique for image processing involves breaking the image up into four, can I say quadrants? Is that fair?
Correct.
When you analyze those quadrants, do you do that in the spatial domain or the frequency domain?
The frequency domain means the frame that I obtain out, in which is highlighted. So I follow that by every single image that I'm working in.
I'm not sure that you followed the question. Sir, do you know what frequency domain processing is?
Not specifically, no. But
Do you know what, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, finish your answer, please.
No, go ahead.
Sir, do you know what spatial domain processing is?
The spatial is the space, I think, is the space in which you are involved according to the images on the monitor.
Do you know the circumstances where you should use spatial domain processing?
No, I don't.
Do you know the circumstances where you should use frequency domain processing?
No, I don't.
When you're seeking information from the image, do you know when it's appropriate to use spatial domain processing versus frequency domain processing?
I'm not familiar with that.
Is it still an echo, you guys? Is it still an echo?
And the last question, sir, is your particular processing technique. Do you have any publications?
No, sir.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anybody else?
I do, Judge, just a couple.
Couple means two. Don't lie to me, okay? So, go ahead.
Now, I just had a few questions. So, do you ever compare one of your enhanced videos to a video of the same thing but of higher quality to see if your enhancement actually made it look enhanced?
If you're telling me about a video from 10 years ago and a video right now for 4K, you will see the difference. From 10 years ago, it's very grainy. From today's, it's very clear. I can see your freckles. I can see your eyelashes.
Okay, it's true though. I don't have freckles though, do I? Okay, but what I was really asking you is, have you ever taken maybe a HD camera and videotape something, and then taken a non-HD video camera and videotape the same thing, and then supposedly enhance the non-HD one so we can compare the two and see if your work actually makes any difference at all?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and how many times have you done that?
That's 'cause, like I said one time, 10 years ago, I used VHS cameras. Today, I have myself a new camcorder, 4K. So you can see the difference. I did not take the same thing, but when you do the close-ups or the enhancements of it, you can see the difference and the details on the image.
Okay, and did you record that anywhere, the accuracy
No,
of
I
that?
didn't record it.
And that was 10 years ago?
No, I did the video on 4K not too long ago and the VHS years ago.
Okay, and then you said you use Photoshop to enhance the images?
Yes, sir.
And it's also true that Photoshop can be used to alter images?
Yes, it can be used, but I haven't.
Okay, and how are we supposed to tell, besides taking your word for it, that you haven't altered any images?
You tell me which one I have done, and then I'll respond to it.
Okay, so just your responses.
If you have something that I've done that is being altered by me, you let me know.
Okay, and then once we let you know, what's going to happen next?
I don't know.
Basis. Relevance.
Your Honor, it goes to his direct previous question.
As to in terms of what? What previous
Like
question?
how the general question still hasn't been answered, but how are we going to know whether one of his work product items has been altered in
Is that an
Photoshop?
issue in this case?
Yeah.
You think that he's altered one of the documents or altered it?
No, Your Honor, credibility is always that issue. And
That's
so,
weight. That doesn't go to the things that I'm the gatekeeper, remember? So as part of that is, do you have something that would indicate to me that he should be disqualified because he's altered something? I don't think there's been anything in terms of foundation.
Your Honor, my point would be that if there isn't a way to know whether he's altered it or not, that goes to the weight and the credibility.
Well, that's a determination for the jury to make. But of course, I'll make an initial threshold under Daubert. But the relevancy issue is kind of waning. So move on.
Okay. So apart from asking you and you answering, we don't have any way to know whether or not you've altered images in Photoshop.
It's up to the person to decide, not mine.
Okay. And what person do you mean?
It could be you, it could be the jury. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have any more questions, Your Honor.
Anybody else? Any other defense attorneys? Okay, all right.
Your Honor, I would want to also move to qualify him as an expert in bilingual language interpretation. You say that he's trained in that.
That's not what you're here for. Yeah, that's not what he's here for.
Well, I'm trying to make him here for that for a trial for my own reasons.
But you need to subpoena him and pay him. Okay, and then maybe he'll show up, but don't try and circumvent the process. There's a way to subpoena witnesses and everything else. And you want to qualify him as a bilingual. If you have a separate need and employment, then I'll let you do that off kind of at your discretion and your leisure. Okay, but that's not the time to do it now.
Okay, Judge, and for the record, it was just that based on his answers to the state's questions.
I know, but that just fills out what he's been doing the past 30 years, okay? In terms of what he has done, additional education he's gotten. You've already kind of examined him about that. It has nothing to do with video enhancement. It's just another skill set that he has, okay? But it's not relevant for the inquiry that he's making right now. All right? All right?
Ms. Pineda, how many times have you qualified as an expert?
Objection asked and answered.
I sustain the objection. He said over 50 times.
Mr. Matthews.
Carlton Matthews.
And the same objection.
Asked and answered.
Thank you.
And I sustain the objection. Christine has been asked and answered. He said he testified over 50 times.
Ms. Pineda, have you kept up with the current technology?
No, I have not.
Was this an old video that you performed video enhancements for?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any argument on this particular witness before I go ahead and make a decision? Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir. Just very briefly on behalf of Mr. Williams, the issue before the court is whether or not he should be qualified as, if I'm correct, I think the state is moving to qualify him as a forensic video analyst. Did I get that correct?
Yes, sir. Forensic video analysis.
I would say to the court, Your Honor, based clearly upon the responses to the questions put before this witness, and in consideration of the Daubert standard and Rule 702, that this witness is clearly not qualified under that standard. I would just state the court knows the law, so I will just say that under the Daubert standard, we look towards relevance and reliability of the witness's testimony. Putting aside the relevance, that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about reliability of the technique, of the proper testimony that would be offered. And although 702 and Daubert is somewhat flexible, it's geared towards scientific validity and the principles that underlie a proposed submission, in this case, a video enhancement. We don't look towards the conclusion, we look towards the principles and the methodology. And we look towards whether or not there's been a testing of the experts, the proffered experts theory. There has not been. We look for whether or not there's been publication in support of the expert's method or theory. There's no testimony that there has been any of that. We look towards, the court is advised under Daubert to look towards.
What about his education? Because that's kind of the issue for me is, so we want to talk about that or his experience, I should say. He's been doing this 30 years. So,
education and experience is factors that the court can look to as well. But and I heard the witness testify that he has testified in regards to video enhancements upwards of 50 times. Those 50 testimonies could all have been improper. They could have been wrong because the methodology has to be tested. They could all very well have been done under the Harper standard, which is no longer the law in the state of Georgia. The question before the court is whether or not this witness meets the Daubert requirements. And I would say to the court that simply looking at the responses to the questions, both on direct and on cross, or on voir dire, that he does not. That the witnesses testified that there are no protocols to the methodology used by him. He is unable to indicate whether or not his method or his methodology is generally accepted. There is no peer review. It's not just that he doesn't know if there's any peer review. There is no peer review of his methodology. There is no testimony as to the error rate of his methodology. On all of those factors, he fails, or this witness fails in terms of being able to be qualified as an expert. And I would ask the court to deny the state's request to qualify this gentleman as an expert.
All right. Anybody wish to add to Mr. Adams? What he is, don't regurgitate, but just add if you've got anything. to that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
On behalf of Mr. Eppinger, Your Honor, the court pointed out the education and experience in this particular case. The witness testified that he had performed almost 500 of these video analysis over 30 years. That breaks down to less than 2 per month over the past 30 years. He also testified that he does not have any formal education or no continuing education with regards to these things over the past 30 years. Those are 2 things that he directly testified to. He has not shown that he has the requisite experience in this particular matter to be qualified as an expert, and as such, neither the education, Your Honor. So we believe that under Daubert, he should not be qualified as an expert. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Looking at 24-7-702, testimony by expert witnesses. B, if scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge will assist the trier of fact to understand the evidence or determine a fact and issue, a witness qualifies as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education may testify thereto in the form of an opinion or otherwise. Before I forgot, state wish to be heard in terms of argument, in terms of the.
Yes, Your Honor, if the court would mind.
Sure, I don't mind.
Your Honor, so I want to be clear that what we're basing our request to qualify this gentleman as an expert is in the video enhancement, the forensic video enhancement, and we are just referring to that older video. The video is from 2015, so I want to start with that. Additionally, Your Honor, although Mr. Adams correctly stated to Daubert, obviously after Daubert we have Kumho Tire, and Kumho Tire explains how we can qualify these experts when it's not that scientific process, when it's not that straightforward. Here's a GBI witness, here's what they do, here's a scientific method. Kumho Tire provides us an avenue to qualify experts based on experience. And this is going to be something that the court's probably going to hear a lot about with our next witness as well. But basically, with experts like this, the 11th Circuit, and I'd like to point to the 11th Circuit because in Rule 702, obviously this being a new rule to criminal law in Georgia, the legislature has directed us to look to not only the 11th Circuit, but also to all federal courts. But I'll start with the 11th Circuit. United States versus Augustin, that's a 2011 case out of the 11th Circuit, and I can provide all the sites for the court if the court would like me to. In that case, the 11th Circuit said, we note that Federal Rule of Evidence 702 does not define an expert in a narrow sense. And in this case, they were qualifying a gang expert. And the court said, in light of the substantial experience that Agent Young had with respect to street gangs, we conclude that the district court was within its discretion in determining that the agent was qualified to give expert testimony. And this is something that happens a lot. The 11th Circuit, and this is another case out of the 11th Circuit, a 2015 case called United States versus Wilson. In United States versus Wilson, the court held that because a Daubert inquiry must be tied to particular facts of the case, the actual Daubert factors, the ones that Mr. Adams referenced, those Daubert factors may or may not be pertinent in assessing reliability depending on the nature of the issue, the expert's particular expertise, and the subject of the testimony. As such, a district court maintains the same kind of latitude in deciding how to test an expert's reliability and to decide whether or when special briefing or other proceedings are needed to investigate reliability, as it enjoys when it decides whether or not an expert's testimony is reliable.
Okay, but here's the thing I want you to focus on for me, Ms. Rosenwasser. That is, you're asking me to court to qualify him as a forensic video, an expert in the area of forensic video analysis. He's not certified by a national accrediting body, which is something that there is an entity or an organization that does provide certification for that particular type of analysis. He has no annual training, and he hasn't been his competency hasn't been tested. So the principles and methodology are something that the court has to has to really kind of look at in this case. He's got 30 years of experience, yes, but there are other things that Daubert requires me to look at in terms of a gatekeeping function. You're asking me to qualify him as a forensic examiner. That's different. If he had some of those other things, other like certifications, I wouldn't have so much of a problem. Convince me that otherwise, because it looks like from looking at, under Daubert and 702, testimony is based on sufficient facts or data. The testimony is a product of reliable principles and methods, and the witnesses applied those principles and methods reliably to the facts of the case, which have or will be admitted in evidence before the trier of fact. So I have great discretion, of course, and it's abuse of discretion for whatever my ruling is.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm trying to ask you, given those issues of not being certified by a national body, which there is one, no annual training, and that's just 3, and then there's no competency or testing. So tell me why I should, I should look to, and I've read Kumo. I know about Kumo. Kumo goes hand in hand. That it for the non-scientific folks, it lets the courts kind of use that gatekeeping function, because part of the gatekeeping function, am I citing Wilson versus Redmond Construction, it's 359 Georgia Appeals 814. It's a 2021 case, and I have to make this gatekeeping function requires me to act as a gatekeeper to ensure speculative and unreliable opinions don't reach the jury. As a gatekeeper, the court must do a preliminary assessment of the reasoning and methodology underlying the testimony is scientifically valid, and of whether that reasoning or methodology can properly be applied to facts in this case.
And
so the trouble I have is you want me to qualify him as forensic. So forensic indicates to the court that there's some level of training, expertise, certification, peer review, or something to that effect.
So, Your Honor, I was wondering if I could amend my co-counsel's request. If we could qualify him only in the expert in the very limited field of video enhancement.
I would do that.
That's what we would like to have, Your Honor.
I would do that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Adams, and I'm going to overrule your. I'll hear your issue, but I believe he is qualified in that particular area of video enhancement. But forensic, I will not qualify him in that.
Your Honor, for purposes of perfecting the record, and
yes,
on behalf of Mr. Williams, we would take exception to the court's rule in that regard. Our argument essentially would be that the same arguments in regards to Daubert and 702 that we proffered previously would apply to whether he's being qualified as a forensic analyst or a video enhancer. And we believe that these statements and the evidence that's been put forth so far do not meet the requirements of Daubert or 702, even under this newly proffered expertise.
Well, I'll of course professionally disagree with you. I think that from the court's listening to his testimony, Mr. Pineda's testimony, he's been doing this for 30 years. There is a methodology that he follows, the 4-part division. That certainly he followed that in this particular case. I think that would be helpful to the jury in this particular matter. So it's different than being a forensic, because then forensic, I should say, video analysis. So I'll respectfully overrule or note your objection for the record.
And ask for continued objection, of course.
All right.
And on behalf of Mr. Stillwell, who's directly affected by this evidence as well, we will join in Mr. Adams' argument and adopt all of his arguments.
Okay, if you're not, Mr. Harvey did you all a favor yesterday, okay? Yeah. Unless there's something else, then I'm going to assume that everybody's going to have the same objection or same basis, okay? And continuing objection. Yes, Ms. Sharp.
John, can I just add something?
Sure.
On behalf of Mr. Myra.
Yes.
I understand the court's ruling, but it's still, his methodology has not been tested. And that's the additional thing that I would add. It hasn't been tested, it hasn't been peer reviewed, hasn't been tested. We have no idea whether or not his methodology, the way that he does it.
Under Kumu, did you take a look at Kumu tire?
I did, Judge.
526 US 137 1999. Okay, and that allows the court to look at other factors for non-scientific, and this is non-scientific. It's more so like not like chemistry, biology, physics, that kind of thing that can be tested. That can be that there's either a right or a wrong answer. So I'm required under Kumu to go ahead and at least if I can look at the other factors in terms of the subject matter of his testimony and expertise, reliability. I'll note your objection for the record. Okay. All right.
But Your Honor, Kumo tire doesn't apply here. This is scientific analysis that he is doing. I don't understand what can be more scientific than using Fourier transforms, discrete cosine transforms. You're taking it into a different domain.
No, you are because you're adding things that haven't been testified to.
He testified that he doesn't know.
Okay, and that goes to weight and sufficiency. Well, in terms of it can go to weight and sufficiency. I have a gatekeeping function, but beside that, you're welcome on cross to take him to task on any of that.
But your gatekeeping function ensures that methods analysis that doesn't follow reliable established standards doesn't get in front of the jury. And this gentleman, while he's been doing it for a long time, is not following the methodology that's established in this industry. He's using his own method.
The Dauber factors, I'm quoting out of Kumu, Dauber factors do not constitute a definite checklist or test, and a gatekeeping inquiry must be tied to particular facts. So, particular facts are, he enhances, he blows this thing up into divides it into 4 parts, and he can testify about that. You're welcome to go ahead, and he's been doing that for 30 years. And certainly the types of videography has changed over that particular period of time. That's what he's going to testify to. You all certainly, there are issues of weight and credibility that I'm sure that you'll go ahead and examine him on. Anything else?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. All right, Mr. Johnson, anything else?
Yes, on behalf of Mr. Evans, Your Honor. With regards to the determination that this is such a scientific matter that would assist the jury, his testimony would assist the jury. He has testified that he uses nothing more than Photoshop, which is a product that is sold to the common public and can be used by anybody. So understanding that Photoshop does not need to be bolstered by his designation as an expert in this particular case. And also, the fact that he said he's been doing this 30 years should not carry weight, given the fact that he's using technology that has not even existed for maybe 10 to 15 years, which he testified that he only uses maybe twice a month based on those things.
And he's been qualified 50 times in DeKalb, Fulton, Cobb, and Gwinnett, and Fulton. So, all right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. All right, Mr. Suri, anything, sir?
Yeah, John Suri Chaka, on behalf of Mr. Dorsey, just we respectfully disagree, Your Honor, and just saying that as he testified, any layperson could do this. We do have an objection as to him being labeled.
They going straight at the judge, Nick.
Bolstering, they can just present him as a witness, as a technician, that enhance the video and explain to the jury what he actually did, not that he has an expertise in that, and not that it's something any different than their investigator or even an intern could have done. So just wanted to say that, Your Honor, that any layperson could do what he's doing, and that is what distinguishes an expert. Thank you.
If anybody can do it, then he's not an expert.
Ms. Rosenwasser, one more thing. What about the issue of somebody? I mean, he used Photoshop in this particular case, didn't he?
Your Honor, could I ask him?
Mr. Pineda, did you use
Yes, he said Photoshop.
Or did you use to enhance the video in this case?
Photoshop.
Photoshop. He did. All right. So what's to say that, as Mr. Suri mentioned already about anybody else being able to use Photoshop.
Your Honor, my understanding from.
'Cause I don't need to designate him as an expert for him to testify.
Absolutely. When we went to qualify and we wanted to do this out of essentially an abundance of caution to ensure that maybe the jury would want to know how that these were enhanced. And we thought that he would be able to explain that based on his years of testimony and experience. So my understanding is that based on his experience, my understanding to the answer to the question where he mentioned that anyone could do this, it was not only that anyone could use Photoshop, but anyone who knows how to use Photoshop and learns over a period of years how to enhance better on it. But should the court wish to find he is only admissible as a lay witness, we'll put in the videos through him as a lay witness. That's fine too. We just want to get the videos in. I don't care who's coming.
Mr. Jimenez, you convinced me. I do believe that given the fact that this is a readily available program, Photoshop, and that anybody with a varying level of skill and practice can do that, I won't qualify him as an expert. I'm just going to let him testify as a layperson for the above mentioned reasons.
Their defense team is cold blooded.
Thank you, Honor. We'll call him as a lay witness.
That's fine. All right. Mr. Pineda, I'm going to go ahead and excuse you as a witness. Appreciate your patience with us. And the state will call you, or Vince will call you. You might get a call from Mr. Menendez over here, the interpreter. But that's a separate issue, okay? And make sure you're patient. All right. So, but please don't discuss your testimony with anybody except the attorneys in this case, okay? All right. Thank you, sir. All right, counsels and those who are interested, before I take up your next witness, you have the other witness, Mr.
Investigator Hall. Yes, Investigator Hall is here, Your Honor.
Okay, let's just pause on him just a second.
Hey man, you just seen some of the crazy theatrics in this court, man.
Witness related
you don't
to
understand what you're looking at.
Mr. Stillwell's motion to
a whole
dismiss.
total different court.
Your Honor, we are not ready on that right now. We can be ready for that immediately after Investigator Hall's testimony.
How come he's not here? I thought you all said you're gonna have him available.
We can make him if Your Honor can give me 10 minutes.
All right, so it's about to switch to a whole nother segment. It's going down right now. Uh-oh.
All right, we ready? Everybody back? Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Ms. Love and Mr. Armstrong.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Rosenwasser, where are we now with the issue involving Mr. Stillwell? Can we have that witness?
Yes, Your Honor, and the hearing is going to be handled by Mr. Armstrong's Love.
Okay. What's the name of our witness?
Deputy District Attorney Michael Sprinkle, Your Honor. SPRINKL.
Okay. All right. Some of Mr. Sprinkle.
Yes, Your Honor.
All parties who are going to give testimony in this case, you can step outside at this point in time. Please don't discuss your testimony except the attorneys in this case.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, the DA's office is speaking to the mic. We have a hard time hearing back here.
Yes, please.
Yeah, long just there.
Mr. Sprinkle on his way, or is he,
He's here, Your Honor.
okay, all right. You can summon Mr. Sprinkle, please.
They are getting him. He was outside, Your Honor. Okay, I don't know. He must have stepped outside.
Who?
Mike. It's okay, we will. It's no problem. Oh,
he went to the,
Your Honor, Deputy Sprinkle is coming to this courtroom from 8F. He erroneously understood us to be there. My apologies to the court.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to let you know. Thank you very much. I didn't tell you.
Thank you very much. You're gonna object on to the introduction of this. What did it happen?
Matter. If I anticipate going to go into the facts of this case a little bit, hopefully not more than necessary, and I will not try to go anywhere unnecessarily. Are we to continue? I mean, we have trial January 9th. Are we to continue to be using initials, pseudonyms? Where are we with that? Because I don't.
And I've been asked to do that. So I mean, this is your motion. So you need to use whatever names. Hold on, Mr. Sprinkle, 1 second. 1 sec, Mr. Sprinkle. Hold on 1 second. So is that what you're asking?
Well, I just don't want to violate anyone's court orders or get in trouble for anything. And I'm going to do my best. I mean, I know people by names, but
I haven't said otherwise. I mean,
okay.
So,
All right.
no, I mean, that was a time period line in the sand for information to be provided. So
we're past that.
Yeah, we're past that.
Thank you.
Ingram, maybe we getting some more phone calls. Answer that for me, please. Huh? No, different. I blocked that last one. Okay, is that clarified, Mr.?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, Mr. Sprinkle? Sir, if you would be so kind, once you drop all your materials, to approach the witness stand, and Deputy Ingram will be swear you as a witness, okay?
Yes, Your Honor. You raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Have a seat. Take your first and last name, and spell first and last name.
First name Michael, Michael. Last name Sprinkle, Sprinkel.
Good afternoon, Deputy Sprinkle. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Deputy Sprinkle, would you please tell the court where it is that you're currently employed?
I'm currently employed at the office of the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney.
And what capacity are you employed there?
I'm a deputy district attorney.
How long have you served the Fulton County District Attorney's Office as a deputy district attorney?
Since June 21st, 2011.
And when did you first begin with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office?
June 21st, 2011.
what area do you work in within the district attorney's office?
I am the head of the unindicted homicide unit. I review all of the murder cases that come, well, not just murder, all homicide cases that come into the office from the various police agencies in the county.
And you made a distinction between murders and homicides. Why is that?
Well, it's not just murder. There's felony murder. There's involuntary manslaughter, voluntary manslaughter, homicide by vehicle in the first degree, et cetera.
Have you always served as the head of the unindicted homicide unit?
No.
Before serving as the head of the unindicted homicide unit, what did you do within the district attorney's office?
For approximately the first 3 months of my employment in the DA's office, I was assigned to what was called at the time the complaint room, which was a 24-hour operation in which I would receive or be assigned cases that were coming in live. Essentially, somebody had just been arrested and the police would send a report. I would review it, speak with the officer, draft some sort of affidavit to summarize the case, and otherwise ready the case for first appearance the following morning. Following that, I was assigned to the non-complex division. I was in that division for 3 to 6 months. It sounds about right. That involved the prosecution of cases that were deemed non-complex, such as possession of cocaine and theft by taking under a certain value. After my time in the non-complex division, I was assigned to the complex trial division for about a little less than 2 years, signed to Judge Schwall's courtroom and then Judge Constance Russell's courtroom. And then in October of 2013, I was assigned to the unindicted homicide unit, albeit I was not the head of the unindicted homicide unit, though if memory serves correctly, I was the only attorney in the unit. So I suppose in a way I was the head, given that I was the only one. But then as time went on, the unit expanded. I was promoted, and now there's more employees in the unit. And now I'm the deputy in charge of it.
Within the homicide unit of the district attorney's office, do you receive cases involving homicides where persons are charged or already arrested?
Yes.
And is it always the case that a person has been charged or arrested when you receive a file within the office?
No.
When you do receive a file wherein a person has been arrested, do you immediately present that case to the grand jury?
No.
Why is that?
Well, I want to ensure that the person who's been charged or arrested primarily committed the crime that it is alleged they committed. So in order to do that, I inspect the case file, which primarily, if not, well, I don't want to say exclusively, because there are some things that I find on my own. But when I'm preliminarily looking at a case file, I look at what the police have sent me, their reports, their interviews, cell phone records, the extractions of cell phones, when the police actually copy the data out of somebody's cell phone. And I just go over all of this to make sure it's consistent with what has been alleged in the arrest warrants.
And do you always have all of the information within the case file given to you by law enforcement that you feel you need in order to fully complete the investigation on a homicide?
No, not always. No.
And what types of steps do you take to ensure that you have obtained as much information as you can? Do you, for instance, do you pull jail calls?
Yes.
Do you speak with witnesses?
I do on occasion, yes.
Do you go to scenes?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Your Honor.
Is it preliminary matter? Is it preliminary matters?
Thank you.
I'll allow it. Over objection.
Thank you. Do you go to scenes?
Yes.
Do you seek search warrants?
Yes.
And do you present evidence to other entities for further testing?
Yes.
And does that always take limited amounts of time, or is that sometimes more protracted?
Well, it depends on the case and the volume of deficiencies that I have identified in the initial investigation.
Bringing you to the case involving the murder of Donovan Thomas, do you recall when you received that case file within the district attorney's office?
Would have been late, probably December 2015, January of 2016, somewhere around there. It's actually probably going to be January of 2016 to be more exact.
And without going into specifics about what that was, at the time that you received that case file, was it complete to your satisfaction as an assistant district attorney?
Well, it depends on how you define the word complete. Was it complete insofar as the Atlanta Police Department was concerned? I don't know. I know that they handed me everything that I asked for. If there were some other documents that the Detective Thorpe still had in his file, they just didn't give to me. I have no way of knowing that. As far as I know, what the Atlanta Police Department gave me was the complete case file.
And did you review that complete case file that you received from the Atlanta Police Department?
I did.
Upon reviewing that case file, were you satisfied that the case was sufficient to present to the grand jury as you received it at that time?
No.
Did you take additional steps to investigate the case?
Yes.
Now, at the time, a person had been arrested on the murder, is that correct?
Yeah, at least one person had been arrested on the murder.
And that person was the defendant Shannon Stillwell?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
From what you were able to gather from the file that Detective Thorpe gave you and from your subsequent investigation of the case that you did, was Mr. Stillwell the only person of interest in that case? Was he the only alleged participant in the homicide?
Well, no, there were three other. If we're talking about the people that had been charged by the police, there were four.
Okay, go ahead.
There was Antonio Sledge, Demikian Garlington, Kenneth Copeland, and Shannon Jackson, aka Shannon Stillwell. Those were the four people that the police charged for the murder of Donovan Thomas in late 2015.
And were you able to determine, based on your review of the file given to you by Detective Thorpe, what primarily those arrests were based on?
They were primarily based on the statement of a young man named Spencer Wright.
All right. And when you received the file from Detective Thorpe, did you endeavor to speak with Spencer Wright yourself?
I did.
Why is that?
Well, so Spencer Wright, according to his statement, he witnessed the homicide, the drive-by shooting, as he stood at a bus stop on McDaniel Street across the street from the barber shop, the parking lot of which Mr. Donovan Thomas stood when he suffered his fatal gunshot wounds. There was a surveillance camera mounted on that barber shop, and the bus stop where Mr. Wright said he stood was in the viewing area of that surveillance camera. And when I looked at the footage, I didn't see anyone standing at the bus stop. I saw a cat at one point milling about the bench at the bus stop, and I only bring that up to indicate that the clarity was sufficient to tell if there was a human being standing there. There was no human being standing there. So what I wanted to do was speak with Mr. Wright and show him. I believe I printed off some still images. I don't think I brought in a computer or something to show him the actual footage. So I wanted to speak with Mr. Wright and make sure. First thing I did is I wanted to speak with him and make sure that I was clear as to where he was standing. So I actually, before I confronted him with the fact that I didn't see him on the video, I had some printouts from Google Earth, and I asked him to point to the specific bus stop where he said he was standing. And when he did, he pointed to the bus stop that was depicted on the surveillance footage, at which point I said, but there's nobody standing at that bus stop. And he didn't really have an explanation for me.
Did you receive that surveillance footage from the Atlanta Police Department?
Yeah, yes.
Did you, as you stated, you pulled Google Earth images. Was that something that you had received from the Atlanta Police Department, or is that something that you did to further your investigation?
That was something I did to aid in my interview of Mr. Wright. I just pulled up Google Earth and took screenshots of the bus stop and the general area where the homicide occurred so he could point to them and indicate where he stood, where he claimed to have been standing, I should say.
And why did it concern you that he was not shown in the surveillance footage that you presented to him, yet he claimed to have witnessed the homicide?
Well, he claimed that the bus stop was his vantage point from which he witnessed the four defendants that I mentioned earlier occupying a vehicle and commit the drive-by shooting. If he wasn't standing at the bus stop, that would suggest he didn't witness it at all.
Was there anything else that you were able to uncover during your ensuing investigation of this case that enlightened you more as to whether or not Mr. Wright was presenting to you information that was factually accurate?
Yes. So after my interview with him, I requested from the Atlanta City Jail, because that's where he was when I interviewed him. I interviewed him inside the Atlanta City Jail. He was an inmate there. From somebody that worked at the Atlanta City Jail, whose name I don't recall. But I asked him to send me Mr. Wright's recorded jail calls, because just like the Fulton County Jail, at least at that time, the phone calls placed by inmates from the Atlanta City Jail were recorded. So when I obtained Mr. Wright's jail calls, I found one that was placed shortly after his arrest to a gentleman. And during this call, and this is, by the way, not verbatim, okay? I'm not quoting him exactly, but he told his friend about his recent arrest, which I believe was on a probation violation. And he said that everything would be okay because he was helping the police solve a murder. And his friend asked, well, what murder was that? He said Nuts murder, and that Nut would be the moniker for Donovan Thomas. And his friend scoffed at him and said, but you didn't witness that. And Mr. Wright responded, he basically shushed him, reminding him that they were on a recorded jail line. But the implication there was that he didn't witness it. And he would prefer that his friend not, utter such a thing on a recorded jail phone. And then he said, but it's something to the effect of, it doesn't matter. We all know what happened anyway. And it's also worth mentioning that during my interview with Mr. Wright, very soon into the interview, something that caught my attention was, he said, you see, I've been on Instagram, or again, not verbatim, but he mentioned that he had been on Instagram and putting the pieces together from there, which put up a red flag, made me think that perhaps he was just compiling his statement through rumors that he saw on the internet. So after I heard that jail call, I asked investigator David White. I knew who he was talking to. I can't recall his name off the top of my head, but the gentleman that he was talking to, and the same gentleman that said, but you didn't witness that, et cetera. So my investigator reached out to him and asked him, well, how did you know that Mr. Wright didn't witness the murder of Donovan Thomas? And he said, well, that murder was a really big deal in the city, and I'm pretty close with Mr. Wright, and he never mentioned to me that he had witnessed it. And it's the kind of thing that he would have mentioned had he witnessed it. So at that point, I was satisfied that Mr. Wright didn't really witness the murder at all, and he just made it up.
Why didn't you just go ahead and present the information to the grand jury as had been presented to you by the Atlanta Police Department? People had been arrested. Is it an imperative that you immediately get the case indicted?
Objection.
Who's made the objection?
Self-serving.
I sustain that's the form. You can rephrase it. You can rephrase it.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Sprinkle, is there any reason in particular why you did not go ahead and present the indictment to the grand jury with the names and the information that had been given to you from the police department?
Well, for one thing, I'm not the one who decides what cases are presented to the grand jury, but if I was, I still wouldn't, because at that point, out of 3 of the 4 defendants, I had a complete absence of evidence that they committed the murder at all, and I wouldn't present a case naming a specific individual. I wouldn't present an indictment to a grand jury wherein a specific individual is alleged to have committed a crime when there's a total absence of evidence that they actually committed the crime. That would actually violate state bar rules for me to do that.
And Your Honor, if the court would, just so that I'm aware, is there any other party to this defendant Stillwell's motion to dismiss that I'm unaware of?
I have not, the court is unaware of anybody else who's joined in this particular issue.
Okay.
So.
Your Honor, if I can answer that, Ms. Dorsey. The state keeps saying that because this is RICO, everything applies to everything. I have adopted the motions of everybody, so I do reserve the right to ask some questions of the witness, Your Honor. But based on the theory that the state says that because it's RICO, everything applies to my client, I do want to make it very clear. I can have nothing to do with this.
Your Honor, this is Shannon Stillwell's assertion of his constitutional right to a speedy trial. I do not believe that Mr. Chadha or his client have any right to assert as it relates to Shannon Stillwell's assertion of his right or the denial thereof to a speedy trial. And I would ask that the court limit questioning and argument and commentary to the parties that are involved in this particular motion.
Your Honor, as it relates to Mr. Mark Quaid, he has nothing to do with it as well in terms of the specifics of a murder. However, he's a part of this indictment.
Yeah, well, the issue you're going to have is that since it's a RICO case and anything can be attributed to any other defendant, that's why that they have a right of confrontation as to this. Now, so the specific relief is only available to Mr. Stillwell, but counsel are entitled to ask other questions as they see fit.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I may, just to be clear, I'm Mr. Williams' behalf. We do claim an interest in the outcome and the argument of this motion. We understand it's Mr. Stillwell's motion, but again, as the court has indicated, because this is a RICO indictment, Mr. Williams is charged in it. He has an interest and an ability to pose objections if necessary.
Deputy Sprinkle, after you determined that the information that you had been given was inaccurate or could not be verified, did you take additional steps to investigate the homicide, the murder of Donovan Thomas?
I did.
And would you tell the court whether or not this was a sort of high-profile case within the office?
It was.
And are you able to say what impact the case itself had on the office or on the city of Atlanta that caused it to be a high-profile case?
Basis.
Irrelevant. What does high-profile case have to do with anything?
All right.
I'll respond.
Why don't you explain that for our rule?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the reason that I asked about it being a high-profile case is to sort of lay the groundwork for the fact that the office did not seek to not investigate or to not make sure that we got the case right. By asking whether it was a high-profile case, it's to bring out to the court the mindset with which Deputy Sprinkle investigated the case.
Yeah, I'm going to overrule your objection. Go ahead, ma'am.
I just want to
Thank you, Your Honor.
be clear.
I've overruled your objection.
Did that murder carry with it a series of violent shootings within the city of Atlanta?
Yes, for many years following that.
Basis. Why don't you rephrase?
I can do that. Thank you, Judge. After the murder of Donovan Thomas, were there multiple shootings within the city of Atlanta within days, sometimes weeks of one another?
Objection, relevance.
I have
There's multiple shootings going on in the basement.
I'm going to overrule. Let her finish, okay? And then I'll okay? All right, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Judge. Were there multiple shootings within the city of Atlanta?
Yeah.
Objection on relevance.
I was going to say same as to leading. Why don't you ask him what happened as a result of that, if he knows, if any?
After the murder of Donovan Thomas, and let me back up. Were there any gang implications to the investigation? In other words, during your investigation and during your initial review of the file, was there any indication from the information that you had within the file that the murder was gang related?
Yes.
And what gangs were alleged to have been involved?
Englewood family, that was the gang to which Mr. Donovan Thomas was a member, a high-ranking member. And the other gang was YSL, or Young Slime Life, to which Mr. Williams was a member.
Did you gain knowledge?
I'm going to object to that answer. Speculation, and after to be stricken.
I'm going to overrule the objection. What's your objection?
It's a legal conclusion. Criminal street gang is a legally defined term, has to be determined by 12 people from the city.
That may be in front of a jury, but this is the district attorney's investigation. I'm going to overrule your objection.
In Your Honor, so just so I'm clear, we are speaking just in layman's terms when we say gang at this moment, not in legal terms.
I'm still going to overrule your objection, okay? Thank you.
And during the weeks and months following Donovan Thomas's murder, did you have information that led you to believe that a series of retaliatory shootings between YSL and Inglewood family took place across the city of Atlanta?
I'm going to object because it calls for hearsay.
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
Your Honor, the defendant, Shannon Stillwell, has alleged an intentional delay on the part of the state. What led us to further our investigation and what information we had?
Goes to conduct?
Yes,
All right, I must overrule the objection.
thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Did you have information that led you to believe that a series of retaliatory shootings between YSL and Inglewood family happened after Donovan Thomas's murder?
Yes, there were cases where the victims were identified as YSL or Inglewood family, and the shooters were also identified as YSL or Inglewood family. And commonly, the shooters would generally be in the rival gang. I don't want to say there were no cases that involved the same members of the same gang shooting at each other, but primarily it was opposing gangs that were shooting at each other. The participants that were identified were in opposing gangs. Those two gangs specifically, yes.
And during that time, did you and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office gang unit work closely with the Atlanta Police Department in an effort to solve the murder of Donovan Thomas, as well as find out whether or not those series of shootings were related, in fact, to the murder of Donovan?
The gang unit, the office's gang unit, I believe they were in consultation with Detective Thorpe, but I don't recall speaking with Detective Thorpe prior to him obtaining warrants for the arrest of the four men that he originally charged.
And that is before the arrest of the persons that were originally charged. I'm speaking of during the months in the year 2015, 2016, did you obtain more information that led you to believe that the murder of Donovan Thomas was gang-related?
Right. Well, yeah, I would routinely consult with Detective Tyrone Dennis with the Atlanta Police Department. He also worked very, very closely on the murder case and, alongside Detective Jim Thorpe Jr.
And were there incidents, shooting incidents that took place, and other incidents that took place that involved members of the alleged offending gang or YSL?
Yes, either, as I said, the victim was identified as being in one gang or the other. The shooters are identified as being in the opposite gang. There were shell casings that, when placed under microscopes and the tool mark on the back of the casing was compared to various incidents, they would find that similar guns, or the same guns, I should say, were used in these various incidents, which could possibly indicate that the same participants were involved.
And did you prepare a supplemental report to the case file that you have been given by Detective Thorpe in order to outline the investigation that you conducted in this case between the time that you received it and November 13, 2018?
Yes.
I'm showing to you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 1.
Yeah, Ms. Love, we're going to just use the next exhibit in order. So what's that, Ms. Rosenweiser?
11. Would the court like for me to then label it State's Exhibit?
State's 11. Yes, ma'am. If you wouldn't mind, please.
I sure will. I'm showing you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 11. SS. Would you take a look at it? In your honor, I will, at the end of this tendering of this exhibit, ask that the court allow me to tender a digital copy of this as evidence. Under seal.
Okay. Yes, I've looked at State's Exhibit 11.
The State's Exhibit 11 contained the supplemental report that you prepared outlining and detailing the investigation that you conducted up until November 13th of 2018.
It does, but as you can see, I brought a copy of my report to the stand with me anyway, and it looks like there may be a page missing from this one because my report has a page that only has about 2 sentences on it, but so this might be a page short, basically.
And
If you are just Sudi Shah on the other side, please be provided a copy of the report that he.
Oh, never mind. There it is. Yeah. Okay.
If it was, or
I think you just testified that missing some sentences, so we just appreciate we get a copy of whatever he's actually doing.
he would be entitled to, he would be required to update that particular as part of continuing discovery. So to the extent, Ms. Love, you have not done that, go ahead and do so, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Deputy Sprinkle, would you please clarify for the court whether or not the page you were referencing is contained within State's Exhibit 11?
It is. You just turn the page over. It turns out I guess it was facing the wrong way. So no, that's my full report.
Thank you. Your Honor, the state tender State's Exhibit 11, and with the court's permission, I would like to enter evidence digitally under seal.
Okay, so granted.
Your Honor, I object.
And Your Honor,
Basis? Is this part of the order that I entered before?
No, it's not.
Why do you want to enter it under seal, madam?
only because it contains information, personal information about witnesses. The defense has been provided this report on August 8th, I believe, 2022 in its entirety. I am happy to let defense counsel look at it, review it, and compare it to their copy of the discovery that has been previously served.
Okay.
My issue is not with under seal per se.
But then I'm going to seal it then, okay?
No, it's not with that. My issue is admitting, we're having a.
Well, okay. No, but you've made it an issue for the purposes of your speedy trial demand.
Right.
So they're introducing as part of what they, as if I understand it, given the factors, is that what they did and the reason for the delay. Is that what you're doing, Ms. Love?
Yes.
So I mean, so that's why they're introducing it for that limited purpose. So
With all due respect, Your Honor, he can testify to what he did.
he just did, but in terms of if the case goes up on appeal, then of course the appellate court will have an opportunity to take a look at it.
For the record, I would just like to say that there's a lot more in that report than what he's testified to through live testimony. And we are objecting to conducting this hearing through proffer, which is essentially what we're doing.
Well, you got live testimony because you haven't even examined Mr. Sprinkle yet. So you certainly will be able to do that. But I'm going to admit it and seal it over your objection, States 11. Okay. And you'll be able to get with Ms. Love and her colleagues and take a look at it. The original, the discovery that you were provided back in August in relation to this particular document, and the state will need to, of course, disclose or let you give you that particular evidence, anything discovery they haven't done so far. Okay.
And we will be able to cross-examine Mr. Sprinkle on all of the contents of that document that's being admitted as evidence. Is what I want to make sure we're able to do.
If they're introducing in evidence, yeah, you get to cross them about anything you want in terms of that particular document.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Deputy Sprinkle, did your investigation into the murder of Donovan Thomas cease entirely as of November 13th, 2018?
No, it didn't.
Would you just briefly encapsulate some of the additional investigations that you participated in or conducted between 2018 and May 2021?
Okay, so in 2019, there were at least 2 gang-related murders that involved the YSL Street Gang and the Englewood Family Street Gang. One was a February 23rd, 2019 murder, involving a victim named Jamari Holmes and some YSL gang members named Damone Blaylock and Rodalius Ryan. I did a lot of work on that case. But for purposes of this hearing, I did a search warrant to Instagram for, I believe it was 4 or 5 accounts belonging to YSL gang members. Now, the reason why is that search warrant was for the accounts of the people that were participants in the February 23rd, 2019 murder of Jamari Holmes, of course. But with any search warrant that I did for concerning either one of those gangs, the murder of Donovan Thomas was always really just on the front of my mind because that.
Why?
It was the murder of Donovan Thomas that was essentially the primary genesis of the dispute between these two gangs that had claimed the lives of so many people and wounded countless others. So I always, when investigating any case.
This is irrelevant.
Madam.
Your Honor, Deputy Sprinkle is talking about the investigation that he continued to conduct into the murder of Donovan Thomas and why it is that he did what he did during that investigation. If again, the state's intent is at issue, Mr. Sprinkle's steps taken during the investigation are reflective of the state's intent.
Okay. I'll overrule your objection, sir.
Mayor Sandra?
What is it you want to tell me? I mean, I've overruled the objection, so what more do you want me to know?
The state just proffered evidence, and I don't think that's correct, Your Honor.
Well, then cross-examine him when you got him on cross.
I understand.
So you're a little, you're a little early, okay? When you got him on cross, you can ask him these questions that you're not allowing him to answer right now. But it's relevant for the purposes of delay and the reason for delay. So can we move on from that? Okay.
In May of 2021, was the case involving the murder of Donovan Thomas turned over to a specific team in the district attorney's office as part of a broader investigation?
It was.
All right. And who was it turned over to?
Don Geary was the primary attorney on the case.
And is that case, or did that case form the basis for the indictment that the defendant sits on today, charged with both the murder of Donovan Thomas and the murder of Shamel Driggs?
Yes, yes, it is, because I at that point was consulting with my coworkers and recommending that we pursue an indictment on the murder case, at which point the others determined that a team should be assembled because this case encompassed a lot more than just the murder of Donovan Thomas. So at that point, my case file was handed, but that was the first step, was my investigation into the murder of Donovan Thomas. And then I wasn't working very closely with them. I would of course answer their questions, of which they had many when they had them, but I wasn't in a room working with them on a daily basis. But from what I understood and what would eventually see when the indictment came out was they were working on this vast RICO case.
And are you aware of a wiretap being used to gain information in furtherance of the investigation of this RICO case that you referenced just now?
Yeah, I drafted all the documents associated with it and performed the minimization procedures and reviewed periodically would spot review the work of the monitors.
And was that in April 2022?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. April 2022, I think towards the end of that month, yes.
And did the investigation that took place between the time that you were given the file by Detective Thorpe and the time that this case was initially presented to the grand jury, form the basis for the indictment 22SC183572?
Yes.
Thank you. Just one
Hit that like button, y'all. Hit that like button. I need everybody to hit that like button. Thumb up the video. I need everybody to thumb up the video. Support the channel.
Person who decides when to indict the case.
That's correct.
Davidson?
Well, back in 2015, 2016,
Yes,
that would have been the district attorney, Paul Howard.
that was Mr. Howard back in 2015 and 2016. Okay. How long did Mr. Howard have that decision-making power on when Shannon Stillwell would be indicted on the 2015 case?
Well, presumably all the way up until the last day of 2020. I believe that was the last day he was in office. I could be wrong about that, but it would have definitely been around that time.
And who took over that decision-making power in 2020?
The current DA, Fonnie Willis, and her and her agents, people like myself and Adam Boddy and Pat Dutcher.
Okay. So when Ms. Love asks if you delayed the indictment to get a tactical advantage on Shannon Stillwell, it wasn't even your decision, was it?
That is correct. That is correct.
That question about choosing when to indict from 2015 to 2020 should be asked of Paul Howard, correct?
I cannot.
Objection, Your Honor.
Basis.
The question about whether or not the decision to indict should have been left to Paul Howard is not proper. It does not speak to Deputy Sprinkle's actions and steps that he took during this investigation in order to make sure that it was thoroughly vetted.
They tried to create the impression that Mr. Sprinkle's the one that called the shots, and he's clearly not. And now that I've asked him about it and it's clear he didn't, now it's irrelevant. They asked him if he delayed the indictment of Shannon Stillwell. I'm saying it was delayed and my client has been prejudiced.
Yeah,
and I want to hear from the person who made that decision.
Well, it's one factor that I'll weigh, Mr. Shart. So go ahead and move on. Because we've had another district attorney since then, and it's part of the overall investigation. So his response might be, I'm assuming it's correct, but certainly has to be looked at in terms of the continuum of other things that went on in this case. So, and I'm sure you're going to examine about those.
Yes, Your Honor. And so starting in 2020, the decision-making was DA Fonnie Willis.
2021, yes.
2021. All right. Okay. When was Shannon Stillwell charged in this case?
I believe it was September 2015.
Okay. If I suggested it was October 2015, would you dispute me on that?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay. And would you dispute that he was arrested in October of 2015?
I'm quite sure it would have been around that time, the last quarter of 2015. Based on when I received the case file, that would be in line with that.
And he was placed in jail?
He was.
Okay. Now, my client, Mr. Stillwell, was charged in 2015, October 2015. Who else did you say was charged at that time?
Antonio Sledge, briefly, because his case was dismissed at the preliminary hearing.
Okay.
Kenneth Copeland and Demikian Garlington.
And that's the same Kenneth Copeland that is on the state's witness list?
Yes.
Okay. And it was Detective Thorpe of APD that made the decision to charge my client, Mr. Stillwell?
Yes.
And it was Detective Thorpe of APD who made the decision to charge Mr. Sumlin, Mr. Copeland, and Mr. Garlington?
Mr. Copeland, Mr. Garlington, I believe you meant to say Mr. Sledge?
Sledge, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
I said Sumlin instead of Sledge.
Yes.
And you're telling us that the decision to charge those four individuals was based
on the word of Spencer Wright?
Well, for 3 out of 4 of them, if my memory serves correctly, it was essentially entirely based on Spencer Wright. Your client, there was a little bit more evidence.
And we're going to get to that, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So, but for the other 3, well, for all 4, a man named Spencer Wright claimed to be at the scene of the murder and named those people as being involved.
Yes.
And when Spencer Wright, are you aware of the circumstances that brought Spencer Wright into contact with Detective Thorpe to tell Detective Thorpe this?
Generally, yes.
Did Spencer Wright have pending charges?
Spencer Wright had been, if my memory serves correctly, I know that he didn't just show up to the precinct out of the goodness of his heart. He had been pulled over, if I remember correctly. During the traffic stop, he threw a gun away in the bathroom at the gas station. He lied about his name, and there was an investigator, Lakia Gaither, just happened to recognize him and reminded him of what his name actually was. So he was, so he had a firearm, and I believe he had a probation violation warrant. So he was taken into custody contemporaneously with his statement.
And so we're clear, you wouldn't dispute that Spencer Wright had a motive to lie?
Yes.
That would be correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Spencer Wright actually came in at the same time that he named these 4 individuals as being involved in this murder and gave police a false name?
He did at first, and one of them, like I said, just happened to know him. And this is all from memory, but I'm pretty sure this is correct.
So he lied about his name?
He did.
And the police knew this?
Yes, they did.
And they took his word on who to arrest on a murder?
That's what happened, yes.
Okay. And through your investigation, you would agree that 3 of the 4 defendants in this case have changed since then regarding the 2015 shooting.
3 out of the 4, okay, so first of all, what do you mean by change, and which 3 defendants are we talking about?
There was 4 people that were charged in October of 2015 by Detective Thorpe. 3 of those 4 people are no longer charged.
Oh, I understand. In other words, we ultimately indict a different set of people than were ultimately charged by the police. Is that your question?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct. We did indict Shannon Stillwell, aka Shannon Jackson, who's your client, but we did not charge Mr. Copeland, Mr. Garlington, or Mr. Sledge with the murder of Donovan Thomas.
Well, let's be clear. They were charged.
They were charged by the police, yes.
And they were arrested and put in jail.
They were, yes.
Based on the word of Spencer Wright.
That is correct.
Who lied about his name?
He did.
And in those 3 people's place that were eventually released, 3 new people have been charged.
That's, well, 4 people actually, but yes.
Okay. 3 new people and Mr. Stillwell.
Yes.
So essentially what we're saying in layman's terms is Detective Thorpe added 250.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance and just unnecessary. Detective Thorpe batted 250.
I'm a sustaining objection.
So you have your report, correct?
I do.
All right. And your report is approximately 100 pages long?
140, I believe.
140. Okay. And you began working in January of 2016?
That's correct, yes.
And on page 2 of those 140, well, let me back up. I'm sorry. Almost the first order of business in this report is your concerns about Spencer Wright.
Correct. That is how my investigation began.
Because you were doing a thorough investigation and you looked at the video and noticed the man who was saying he witnessed the event was not where he said he was.
Correct.
And so your report, this 140-page report, begins with discussion of the video and Spencer Wright.
Yes.
On page 2 of the report, in the first paragraph, you talk about Detective Thorpe finding probable cause for these 4 individuals that are originally charged.
Yes.
And then you say, Kenneth Copeland, Demikian Garlington, and Antonio Sledge, or I'm sorry, you say Copeland, Garlington, and Sledge consisted almost entirely of the statement of Mr. Spencer Wright, correct?
Correct.
All right. You went on to say, with respect, or to write, with respect to Mr. Jackson, Mr. Wright also implicated him in the statement summarized below. However, there was another witness named Quindarius Zachary that also implicated Mr. Jackson.
That is correct.
Okay. So on page 2 of the report, you were saying that there was an additional witness against, when I say Mr. Jackson, you were calling Mr. Jackson report, but it's my client, Mr. Stillwell.
Yeah, back then he was known as Shannon Jackson. That's why I say Shan Jackson, AKA Shan Stillwell, or vice versa.
All right. You, as the investigator, did not have the same doubts or concerns about Mr. Jackson's case or Mr. Stillwell's case than you did with the other 3 defendants, based on additional witness testimony, correct?
Well, I mean, I at least had some evidence that he committed the murder. Yes.
Okay. All right. And just to be clear, in January 2016, when you're working on this case and throughout your investigation, Shannon Stillwell is still presumed innocent in jail.
He was in jail for about 250 days, I believe, on the murder charge before he was transferred, I want to say, to the Department of Corrections on unrelated matter. Okay. But yes, he was in jail, yes.
And he didn't bond out on this case until, on the 2015 case, until October of 2018, isn't that true?
I recall, if I remember correctly, he was booked into the jail on October 23rd and made bond the next day because he had obviously gotten a bond long before then because he had been in jail over 90 days on the murder.
Right, but he was in jail for 3 years.
On the murder?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe he was jailed for 3 years. I believe he was in jail for about 250 days on the murder.
Okay, well, we'll say 250 days. I mean, that's a substantial amount of time, correct?
Legally, it's subjective as to what's substantial.
Okay. Well, you wouldn't want an innocent man locked in jail for that long.
Objection, argumentative.
I sustain this to form.
Thank you,
I
Judge.
sustain it.
Okay. Are you an ethical prosecutor?
Yes.
And for the record, I believe Mr. Sprinkle is. Okay. If you felt that there was no case against Mr. Stillwell like you thought about the others, you would presumably have done something to get his release, correct?
Right. What I would have done is I would have told his defense attorneys that essentially there was no evidence, which is what I did with the other co-defendants. So.
Okay.
Right. But with Mr. Stillwell, the absence of evidence wasn't quite as stark.
Okay. And so you didn't take any proactive steps to seek the release of Mr. Stillwell like you did the others?
No.
How long has, to your knowledge, are you familiar with the internal workings of the Fulton County District Attorney's Office?
Pretty familiar. I've been working there for over a decade, so.
How long has the Fulton County District Attorney's Office been investigating YSL?
I can't speak to what the gang unit was doing at around this time. They were in a section of the office to which I didn't have access. Now, if I knocked on the door, if they were there, they would generally let me in, but I didn't just have unfettered access to their area such that I could wander in at any given point. So they were by design closed off from the rest of the office.
Certainly you were aware generally of whether there was as you were working this Donovan Thomas case, whether there was an active investigation.
Yes, there was. And so to answer your question to the best.
Right here, man, y'all drop a fire emoji
As far
in
as
the
I
chat.
knew,
Y'all can go
or
watch
as far
the
as I
full
can remember,
live
the
stream
investigation
streaming
into
on a
YSL
lot of
really
people's
started with the murder of
platforms.
Donovan
I appreciate y'all for
So
tapping in.
2015.
See y'all on the other side. Enjoy the rest of your